Hey, and welcome to Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Christy Palermo and Jennifer Hobson. All right, so today we are talking about growing pains. And so what does that mean? That's really when whatever it is you're working for, whatever you're striving for, health, relationships, success in your business, anything you're going for, you're going to have struggle, resistance. There are going to be growing pains. So that's basically what we're wanting to chat about today. So as we normally do, we like to start off with a question. So Jen, as you coach people through health, you coach people through their businesses, you see a lot of different things come up for people. And as they're going through growth, what are some ways that you see these growing pains coming up for people?
What's funny is when we talked about having this episode, I didn't think about it, but as soon as you said the word growing pains, I thought of the show from when we were growing up. And the whole idea of every single episode was something extremely challenging for them, and the whole idea of growing pains. And it was very much connected to what we're talking about. And I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but I'm thinking about it now. And how you're posing your question, I think for a lot of people, it may show up based on an individual basis, right? Based on their own stories, their own challenges, or what they're going through. However, the things that I see over and over and over again is the way that they show up for some people is quitting, right? Just genuinely giving up on whatever they said it is that they wanted to accomplish. Quitting is the easiest way for growing pains to show up, right? They're afraid of continuing the journey because it's getting hard or it's not looking like what they thought it would look like. They're not getting the results they wanted. It's just easier to not do the hard things, right? So a lot of times it just shows up quitting. And what's crazy is for a lot of people, they don't even get to the painful part. They quit before they even get started. That's one of the craziest things, and one of the things I see the most frequently is that a lot of people are afraid of growth so much they don't even get started, and they quit before they're starting. And then for a lot of other people, there's a lot of blame, right? Or excuses, if you will, right? I didn't accomplish this because of this person, or because this happened to me, or people don't want to spend money, or it's hard to lose weight, or my body wasn't built that way, or I'm not meant to be successful. Whatever excuse it is, a lot of time growth starts to show up with people making excuses for why they haven't achieved the things they want. And I think that's really hard for people because, it's very easy to blame or make a reason why not versus why yes, right? It's very easy to go, well, I wasn't able to do that because of this, or I didn't get the promotion because of my boss. Like, there's so many different excuses you could possibly make, when honestly, if those things did happen to you, it's not to you, it's for you. Sometimes you weren't meant to get that job because there's a better job for you. You know what? You were meant to do something different. So I think it shows up definitely as quitting before you even get started, quitting in the middle. It shows up as excuses. And I think for a lot of people, it shows up in comfort, right? Comfort is actually one of the biggest things I see in growing pains, is that when people stop doing the things that scare them, they settle for being comfortable. And those are really the biggest three things. And that's with coaching business, helping people coach through their new businesses. That's helping people coach through their fitness and nutrition journey. And that's even me in my own experience, finding, and like you said, it's that resistance. You're always feeling that resistance. And a lot of people just go, well, I'm comfortable where I am. I'm okay. I have a roof over my head. I get to eat. Well, what if you had the roof over your head that you really, really dreamed and envisioned? What if you could eat better food because you didn't have to be on a specific budget, right? All these different things. And I think that's how it shows up the most frequently when I'm coaching and on my own personal journey, is quitting while you're ahead, genuinely being comfortable and not doing things that scare you and making excuses.
Yeah, I think you had hit a lot of great points there. And I think as people are listening to this, it's kind of like, I know an instance where I've done that. I know an instance where I've done that. For sure, we can all relate to those things. And then I would tag on to that I agree with all those things. And then we've talked a lot about this, self-sabotage. I think it creeps up because we get that uncomfortable feeling. And sometimes we're not even aware of the self-sabotage that's going to happen that comes out of it, and feeling that discomfort. And instead of addressing what that emotion is that's coming up, or sometimes it's a physical feeling that's coming up that doesn't feel quite right, we end up retreating and doing things to sabotage ourselves. And sometimes it's not even, we're not even aware of it, and sometimes we are, of course, and thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'm not meant for that. Maybe I'm not meant to go on that path. There's too much struggle. But actually, I was thinking of a book that I literally just started. I'm on the first like couple pages of it, and it's called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I love that the idea of a mountain, a true mountain in life is formed from two opposing sides that are causing pressure, two conflicting parts of ourselves, right? But a real mountain, two conflicting sides of the earth that are pushing against each other. And that's what's going to cause a giant mountain to be formed. And so just recognizing that there's going to be the conflict within us with anything major that's going to be formed within us. So thinking of growing our mountain in a good way, and experiencing something like that, we're going to experience these opposing forces of like, I want this thing, but I feel like it's a struggle. Is it too much of a struggle? Am I meant to do this? And all those questions that come up around growth in whatever fashion it is that we're going for.
Well, I think a lot of times most people's mountains are exactly the same. The details might be different, but during growth, your mountain is really two sides, just like you said. But for most people, one side is what you want, and the other side is what you're willing to do to get it. And I think that's the difference is, a lot of people want these same things, right? They want to achieve big goals. Maybe they want to make a lot of money. They want to be really healthy. What they want to help a lot of people. Whatever it is, there's always the side of what you want and your big vision, but there's also going to be what you're willing to do. And guess what? If the vision is much higher than what you're willing to do, the point doesn't meet. There's no top of the mountain. It's really hard to get there if the one side of what you're willing to do doesn't actually reach the top of the mountain. And I think that is so common for people, is that what they want does not match what they are willing to do or what they are willing to give up.
Yes. And as you say that, what comes to mind, you say there's no point to your mountain. And so literally it's a plateau. So figuratively, and
We are not topographical geniuses here, but whoa.
but right, and that's what happens in that talk. You talked about a comfort zone, and that is 100% where so many of us rest. And I have had seasons for sure where comfort is, it just feels better, and you just don't want to go through the growth, and we settle and we retreat and come up with excuses. And then sometimes it's just addressing it too, and being like, okay, maybe this is a moment of it, but I know where I'm going, and keeping that vision and being able to like, okay, let me regroup, recognize it, so that then we can move forward out of it. Because if you're not even aware of it, like that's where we're going to have some issues because then.
Well, I think what happens is, and we're just talking about the negative side, and we'll get into the positive side. There's also a positive side to growing pains. I don't want to talk about all the negative, but for the people that have chose to quit or have chose excuses or have chosen the comfort zone, what ends up happening is the next step is then they justify it. And justification is huge in the idea of whether or not you're going to move forward on the things that you want to do. And justification shows up kind of like excuses. Well, it's okay that I quit because I didn't really want to do that. Right now we start lying to ourselves. And those excuses are totally valid, and that's not why I do it. I'm not forgetting the part that real tough stuff happens to people. That's not what we're talking about here, people. What we're talking about is justifying the bullshit excuses that you use to give up on the things that you truly want to achieve. And then we justify the comfort zone. I'm okay with what I do. I'm okay with where I live. I'm okay with the few experiences I get to really enjoy, or whatever it is that you're holding back on. It's different for everyone. Maybe people want to travel more. Maybe they want to move away from there. Maybe they want a different job. Maybe they want their family to look a little different. But if you start creating that comfort zone and then justify it, That's where you're going to be. And we've talked about this before, is there's no stagnant, there's no stability. So if you're not moving forward, you are moving backwards. So we can go back to Christy's topographical references. And now we've gone from the mountain to the plateau into a valley.
I literally am picturing myself rolling backwards down a hill.
Rolling down the backside of the mountain, going and just sitting in the valley in the middle in the dirt and going, but this is where I want it to be. Bullshit.
But
That's
I
not where you want it to be. I love it. I love the visuals because that's really what happens. So switching from the negative side to the positive side, I think we have to spend time talking about that too. It's not just scary to grow and those are your only three options. So on the other side, so kind of to the other side of your question, what are the three things I see the most frequent in people that grow through their growing pains? Is people that don't make excuses, they stay consistent, they show up even when it sucks, right? They get really comfortable in the mundane daily consistency of their actions, and they're continuously making new goals because they're achieving their goals. And I think that's really important too. And it can be a really beautiful experience. It might not be totally gorgeous, right? You got to get a little nitty gritty, but it's worth the payout on the other side.
Absolutely. Those are some great things to think about. And I would say acceptance too, to experiencing the hard parts is that acceptance. And then, yeah, growing once you're moving past that, there's just so much light on the other side of that. And then that within it gives you more confidence. So it gives you more confidence and energy to then keep moving through to make that next goal, to set the next goal, I should say, and to keep moving forward to the next thing.
Well, I think in growth, there's a lot of time spent that needs to be spent on discovery, right? Discovering what you actually want to achieve, who you actually are, right? Like as we evolve in our life, I think back to who I was in my 20s. I'm like, oh, who the hell was that? I don't even know that person anymore. And then into my 30s, and then getting ready to, bridge that gap onto my 40s. And your entire life is evolving, but you need to take time to discover what are the things that I actually like to do? What are the things that bring me joy? What are the things that energize me? What are the things that don't serve me? And if you're not spending time on your discovery journey while growing, you're not going to evolve because you're going to continue thinking you like the same things. You want to be the same person that you were 10 years ago. So you have to take some time on discovery to go, what are the things I'm even trying to achieve and that I can grow through? Because if not, you're going to be the same person you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I don't know, that person she was cool, but she wasn't great.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know. So I think that's a great way to put it, is to have that discovery time, because you will never know that you love those things or want those things unless you step outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah. And I truly think it goes back to what is it that you truly want to accomplish? What's important to you? And even back to what we talked about at the beginning of 2023 is, what are the three things that are most important to you? I've continuously told you guys that it was family, finances, and health. Like, those are the things that were really important to me. So, and what am I moving towards? Is it in alignment with that? Have I discovered those are the things that I truly want to do? And what am I willing to do to achieve them? And what am I willing to give up to achieve them, right? The things that may not serve me anymore. And you have to do discovery on that, and you have to write it down, and you have to figure it out. And I know for me right now, I'm in a transition period right now, and it's a little uncomfortable, right? I'm adding a new kind of branch of my business, and it's not something I've done before. And there can be a lot of doubt, there can be a lot of hesitation, there can be a lot of not confidence yet, right? But I have to continue showing up even when I don't want to. And it might not be exactly how I've, created a business before. And that was exciting and I achieved it. But this is something new. And you have to be willing to embrace the suck.
Yes, I love that you say that. I was taking my kids just for a wellness visit at the pediatrician's today, and there was a sign with just all quotes that kids had put up. And one of them comes to mind right now, and it said, if you can't make mistakes, you can't make anything. And it's so true. Like, better to do it messy at first, but the only way you'll learn to move forward is to do it messy and to move on and be able to learn, okay, now I know what I don't want to do, to then make the next step. And that's the only way to grow. Otherwise, you're just sitting in the space of questioning, of doubt. And we all know we don't move anywhere from there. And you're just like literally stewing in your own brain. And what if, when most of those scenarios are never going to happen anyway. So you have to go and you have to make the mistakes, and or maybe it's not mistakes. Maybe it's something beautiful. It doesn't have to always be a negative side of it.
I like that you use the word mistakes, because ironically, just this past week, I identified that I was actually being really hard on my oldest son, and he had made an innocent mistake. And it goes back to, that's my story, right? That I have to be perfect all the time, and it's not okay to make mistakes. And it was something so silly that I snapped at him, and I had to go back and apologize and say, hey, listen, you really didn't do anything wrong. You're learning, and I have to be more patient with you and more understanding. When it's like, it's almost like I was talking to my inner child, right? And I have to be more patient, and I have to be more understanding of the shit that I don't know or I've never done before if I don't do it right the first time.
I think there's something to be said for your growth, to be able to recognize that, to be able to say it to him, because even though he's a child, he's still a person, and
Right?
being able to step up and say, hey, sorry, that wasn't you. That was really me. That was a me thing.
If he can grow without having those stories and be comfortable trying new things and not being afraid of messing it up, like that will serve him so more than me being like, you didn't do it right the first time.
Because then I'll always be afraid
Mm-hmm.
of those mistakes, of those missteps, where that's usually what takes us to another place in our lives.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Before we wrap it up, do you see anything different? Has there been anything else in your personal growth that you showed up that's maybe been on repeat?
I mean, yeah, all the time. There's plenty of things I could think about that I come back to. And we're always hardest on ourselves, right? We notice the things that are holding us back. But I think, as you had just said, your inner child, like that small part of me that is afraid of the growth. It's the fear that brings me back. And I'm like, the what ifs, what we were just talking about, the what ifs. And I feel like I have to constantly do work on pushing through that and making myself do the things when I'm uncomfortable, which is exactly what this episode is about, doing things to move up the mountain, move myself forward, and just stepping into the discomfort of it, because the fear, I think, is what is my biggest thing that I come back to, and that I'll just get frozen in time.
Well, I
For
like
sure.
that you said the what ifs, because that's one thing that I didn't mention. And for a lot of people, and if those are listening and you spend a lot of time what ifing in a negative way, it's time to what if in a positive way. Instead of what if I fail? What if I look like a fool? Well, what if you succeed? What if it goes better than you could have planned? And really taking the time to flip the switch on the what ifs from the negative to the positive.
Right, because it's a 50-50 chance of which way it's going to go. So why not focus on the positive? Because it's just
What
as
if it's in a
inevitable.
dumpster fire? Well, what if it's a freaking rainbow? Like, change it up.
Rainbows and unicorns.
Unicorns, no dumpster fires here.
No, I think this is something I knew I really wanted to talk about this as we're about to head into the new year. I mean, we still have a lot of time before that, but just addressing the things. What are your mountains? What are the things you want to look towards in the good way of of the ways that you hold yourself back, or you know, um are just not moving forward. So it's good to take that pause now and just reflect on these things. So moving forward. So absolutely join our conversation. Join us on Instagram at happy, healthy, skeptical. And we'd love to hear from you.